Do we know what we mean by the self? By that I mean the idea, the memory, the conclusion, the experience, the various forms of nameable and unnameable intentions, the conscious endeavour to be or not to be, the accumulated memory of the conscious, the racial, the group, the individual, the clan, and the whole of it all, whether it is projected outwardly in action or projected spiritually as virtue. The striving after all this is the self. In it is included the competition, the desire to be. The whole process of that is the self, and we know actually when we are faced with it that it is an evil thing. I am using the word evil intentionally because the self is dividing. The self is self-enclosing. Its activities, however noble, are separate and isolating. We know all this. We also know those extraordinary moments when the self is not there, in which there is no sense of endeavour, of effort, and which happens when there is love. It seems to me that it is important to understand how experience strengthens the self. If we are earnest, we should understand this problem of experience. Now, what do we mean by experience? We have experience all the time, impressions, and we translate those impressions and we react or act according to them. We are calculating, cunning, and so on. There is a constant interplay between what is seen objectively and our reaction to it, and the interplay between the conscious and the memories of the unconscious. According to my memories, I react to whatever I see, to whatever I feel. In this process of reacting to what I see, what I feel, what I know, what I believe, experience is taking place, is it not? Reaction, response to something seen, is experience. When I see you, I react. The naming of that reaction is experience. If I do not name that reaction, it is not any and experience. Watch your own responses and what is taking place about you. There is no experience unless there is a naming process going on at the same time. If I do not recognize you, how can I have the experience of meeting you? It sounds simple and right. Is it not a fact? That is, if I do not react according to my memories, according to my conditioning, according to my prejudices, how can I know that I have had an experience? Then there is the projection of various desires. I desire to be protected, to have security inwardly, or I desire to have a master, a guru, a teacher, a god, and I experience that which I have projected. That is, I have projected a desire which has taken a form, to which I have given a name, to that I react. It is my projection, it is my naming. That desire which gives me an experience makes me say, I have experience, I have met the master, or I have not met the master. Desire is what you call experience, is it not? When I desire silence of the mind, what is taking place? What happens? I see the importance of having a silent mind, a quiet mind, for various reasons, because the Upanishads have said so, religious scriptures have said so, saints have said so, and also occasionally I myself feel how good it is to be quiet, because my mind is so very chatty all the day. At times I feel how nice, how pleasurable it is to have a peaceful mind, a silent mind. The desire is to experience silence. I want to have a silent mind, and so I ask, how can I get it? I know what this or that book says about meditation and the various forms of discipline, So through discipline I seek to experience silence. The self, the me, has therefore established itself in the experience of silence. I want to understand what is truth. That is my desire, my longing. And then there follows my projections of what I consider to be the truth, because I have read a lot about it. I have heard many people talk about it. Religious scriptures have described it. I want all that. What happens? The very want, the very desire is projected, and I experience because I recognize that projected state. If I did not recognize that state, I would not call it truth. I recognize it, and I experience it, and the experience gives strength to the self, to the me, does it not? So the self becomes entrenched in the experience. Then you say, I know. The master exists. There is a God. Or there is no God. You say that a particular political system is right, and all others are wrong. So experience is always strengthening the me. The more you are entrenched in your experience, the more does the self get strengthened. As a result of this, you have a certain strength of character, strength of knowledge, of belief, which you display to other people because you know they are not as clever as you are, and because you have the gift of the pen or of speech, and you are cunning. Because the self is still acting, so your beliefs, your masters, your castes, your economic system are all a process of isolation, and they therefore bring contention. You must, if you are at all serious or earnest in this, dissolve this center completely and not justify it. That is why we must understand the process of experience. Is it possible for the mind, for the self, not to project, not to desire, not to experience? We see that all experiences of the self are negation, destruction, and yet we call them positive action, don't we? This is what we call the positive way of life. To undo this whole process is, to you, negation. Are you right in that? Can we, you and I, as individuals, go to the root of it and understand the process of the self? If you allow yourself to be forced into the corner, you see what will happen. We should like there to be an element which is timeless, which is not the self, and which we call God. Now, is there such a thing which the mind can conceive? There may be, or there may not be. That is not the point. But when the mind seeks a timeless spiritual state which will go into action in order to destroy the self, is that not another form of experience which is strengthening the me? When you believe, is that not what is actually taking place? When you believe that there is truth, God, the timeless state, immortality, is that not the process of strengthening the self? The self has projected that thing which you feel and believe will come and destroy the self. So having projected this idea of continuance in a timeless state as a spiritual entity, you have experience, and such experience only strengthens the self, and therefore what have you done? You have not really destroyed the self, but only given it a different name, a different quality. The self is still there because you have experienced it. Thus our action, from the beginning to the end, is the same action, only we think it is evolving, growing, becoming more and more beautiful. But if you observe inwardly, it is the same action going on, the same me, functioning at different levels with different labels, different names. When you see the whole process, the cunning, extraordinary inventions, the intelligence of the self, how it covers itself up for identification through virtue, through experience, through belief, through knowledge, when you see that the mind is moving in a circle, in a cage of its own making, what happens? When you are aware of it, fully cognizant of it, then you are not extraordinarily quiet. Not through compulsion, not through any reward, not through any fear. When you recognize that every movement of the mind is merely a form of strengthening the self, when you observe it, see it, when you are completely aware of it in action, when you come to that point, not ideologically, verbally, not through projected experiencing, but when you are actually in that state, then you will see that the mind, being utterly still, has no power of creating. Whatever the mind creates is in a circle within the field of the self. When the mind is not creating, there is creation, which is not a recognizable process. Reality, truth, is not to be recognized. For truth to come, belief, knowledge, experiencing, the pursuit of virtue, all this must go. The virtuous person who is conscious of pursuing virtue can never find reality. He may be a very decent person, but that's entirely different from being a man of truth, a man who understands. To the man of truth, truth has come into being. A virtuous man is a righteous man, and a righteous man can never understand what is truth, because virtue to him is the covering of the self, the strengthening of the self, because he is pursuing virtue. When he says, I must be without greed, the state of non-greed which he experiences only strengthens the self. That is why it is so important to be poor, not only in the things of the world, but also in belief and in knowledge. A man with worldly riches, or a man rich in knowledge and belief, will never know anything but darkness, and will be the centre of all mischief and misery. But if you and I, as individuals, can see this whole working of the self, then we shall know what love is. I assure you that that is the only reformation which can possibly change the world. Love is not of the self. Self cannot recognize love. You say, I love, but in the very saying of it, in the very experiencing of it, love is not. But when you know love, self is not. When there is love, self is not. It's from a book my dad lent to me called the Krishnamurti. Well, he's quite famous. I think I'll just leave you to research, or maybe you know who Krishnamurti is. But the chapter was called "What is the Self?"